Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're taking a closer look at avian influenza.
Specifically the H5N1 strain.
Yeah, H5N1. We've got a fascinating new study straight from the NIH, actually.
Published in Science, really interesting stuff.
Definitely. So we're going to unpack those findings, see what it all means, for you.
Right, for everyone.
Because, well, imagine a world where a single tiny change in a virus
Just one small change
could make it way easier for it to jump from animals.
to humans, yeah.
And that's kind of what researchers are exploring with this whole H5N1 thing.
Exactly.
So I guess maybe let's start with like a basic overview for anyone who,
Like a little refresher, sure.
yeah, what is HPAI H5N1? Break it down for us.
Okay, so it's a highly pathogenic avian influenza virus,
Mm.
and it's been circulating in U.S. dairy cows.
Dairy cows. Okay, so not just like chickens and birds.
It can infect a range of birds, but we're seeing it in cows now, which is a concern.
Right, and I guess the big question is, can it spread to humans?
Well, current strains, no, not really. They don't transmit easily between humans.
Okay, that's good at least.
But there have been cases of infections from contact with infected animals.
So like poultry workers, farmers, people who are exposed directly.
Exactly. Those folks are at higher risk.
And that's going to be scary. I mean, you're working with these animals.
Yeah, it's a real concern, and it's why researchers are always monitoring H5N1 for any changes.
For mutations, right, things that might make it easier to spread.
Exactly. And that's what this new study is all about. They focused on something called hemagglutinin.
Hemagglutinin, I feel like I've heard that before. What is it again?
It's a protein on the surface of influenza viruses. It allows them to attach to cells.
So, like, the virus needs that to infect a cell.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Avian influenza viruses, they struggle to infect humans.
Why is that? I mean, if they can attach, what's stopping them?
It's because our cells in our upper respiratory tract, they lack the avian type cell receptors.
Like a key that doesn't fit the lock.
Perfect analogy, yeah. So scientists at Scripps Research, they wanted to understand how mutations in the HA gene,
Mutations in that hemagglutinin thing?
yeah, in the HA, might affect the virus's ability to bind to human-like cell receptors.
So they're basically trying to see if they can make that key fit the lock better?
Kind of. They looked at a strain of H5N1 that infected a person in Texas.
There was a case in Texas. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, a while back. So they took that strain and started manipulating the HA gene in the lab.
Well, introducing mutations.
Precise.
And what did they find? Did they make it more dangerous?
Well, what they found was pretty significant. A single mutation called Q2226.
Q226L, what a name.
Yeah, it's a scientific name for a specific change in the genetic code.
Okay, so what did this Q226L mutation do?
It significantly improved the virus's ability to attach to those human-like cell receptors.
Oh, wow, that's not good, is it? Does that mean H5N1 is about to cause a pandemic?
Hold on. Don't panic just yet. It's not that straightforward.
Okay, phew. So why not? What's missing?
Well, remember, they only introduced mutations into the HA protein. They didn't work with a complete infectious virus.
So it's like they made the key fit better, but it can't open the door yet.
Exactly. The virus still needs a lot more changes to actually cause widespread infection in humans.
So it's a potential risk, but not an immediate threat.
Right. And that's why this kind of research is so important. It helps us stay ahead of potential threats, even if the current risk is low.
It's like knowing what to watch for.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to talk about next, the implications of this research for, for everyone.
Right, what does it all mean? Stay tuned. We'll be back after a quick break.
Sounds good.
It really makes you think, like, what else are researchers looking at,
Well, one thing they're really focused on is how efficiently the virus replicates once it's inside human cells.
So even if it gets in, can it actually, like, thrive there?
Exactly. It's not enough to just attach and enter. It needs to be able to make copies of itself.
Right, to spread and cause disease. I get it.
And researchers are looking at all sorts of factors that influence that replication process.
But what? What kind of factors?
Well, for example, how well the virus can kind of hijack the cell's machinery.
Like take it over and use it for its own purposes.
Exactly. It's a bit like a hostile takeover at the cellular level, you could say.
Wow, that's pretty intense when you think about it.
And then, of course, there's the question of how the virus spreads from person to person.
Right, that's key for a pandemic, isn't it?
Absolutely. For a virus to really cause a pandemic, it needs to be translated efficiently, like through the air.
Coughs, sneezes, all that.
Exactly. So even if a virus can infect a few people, if it can't spread easily between them.
It's not going to cause a huge outbreak.
Right. So researchers are studying how mutations in the virus might affect its ability to bind to receptors in the respiratory tract.
Those receptors, they're important for airborne transmission, right?
Right. They're key. Yeah,
It's crazy how much we're still learning about these viruses.
it is. And it's important to remember that this research isn't just about H5N1.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, these principles we're learning about viral evolution and transmission.
They apply to other viruses too, right?
Absolutely. Particularly those that jump from animals to humans.
Zoonotic viruses, yeah. So like the knowledge we gain from H5N1,
It can help us prepare for potential pandemics caused by other viruses.
that's really encouraging actually to know that we're learning from this and applying it to other threats.
Exactly. And it all comes back to understanding how viruses evolve and adapt their strategies to infect new hosts.
And using that knowledge to develop vaccines, treatments, all of that.
Exactly. That's the ultimate goal.
Which brings us back to that Q226L mutation, I guess, knowing about this specific change.
How can it help us develop better vaccines?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Well, think about it. What if we could design a vaccine that specifically targets that mutated part of the virus?
Like a custom-designed defense system.
Precisely. We could train our immune system to recognize and attack that specific region.
And stop the virus from even attaching to our cells in the first place.
Ideally, yes. That's the hope.
That's incredible. It's like taking a proactive approach rather than reacting after the fact.
Exactly. And that's one of the exciting possibilities that this research opens up, more targeted and effective vaccines.
Not just for H5N1, but potentially for other viruses too.
That's the idea, yes. It's about using this knowledge to develop broader strategies for vaccine development.
It's really promising, to see this kind of progress happening, but I have to admit, sometimes it's a little scary too.
I understand a lot of people feel that way. All this talk about mutations, pandemics.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
What would you say to people who are, feeling anxious about all this?
I'd say knowledge is power. The more we understand about how viruses work, how they evolve.
The better equipped we are to protect ourselves.
Exactly, and there are things we can do to reduce our risk.
Like good hygiene, getting vaccinated, staying home when we're sick, all that stuff.
Those are all important steps, yes. And staying informed, of course.
Listening to podcasts like this one, right?
Well, I wouldn't say that's the only thing, but it certainly helps to stay up to date on the latest recommendations.
Right, from public health officials and things like that. Because this research, it's not just happening in a vacuum, is it?
No, it directly impacts the work of public health professionals.
In terms of preparing for potential outbreaks and responding to them.
Absolutely. It highlights the critical role of surveillance.
Like keeping an eye out for new viruses, tracking how they spread.
And identifying any changes in their genetic makeup, any mutations that might signal a higher risk.
It's like we're building a better defense system as a society.
In a way, yes, it's about being prepared, being proactive.
So this research, it's not just for scientists in a lab, it's actually informing real-world action.
Exactly. It's a collaborative effort involving researchers, public health officials, healthcare providers.
And even the general public, in a way.
We all have a role to play, absolutely.
And speaking of the research, what's next for this Q226L mutation? What are scientists hoping to learn?
Well, one thing they'll focus on is how this mutation interacts with other mutations.
Because viruses are always changing, right? They pick up multiple mutations over time.
Exactly. And understanding how those mutations work together, that gives us a more complete picture of how the virus might adapt.
To infect humans, right?
Exactly. It's like solving a complex puzzle where each piece represents a different mutation.
And then, of course, there's the whole vaccine development side of things.
Right. They'll want to test the effectiveness of vaccines that specifically target the Q226L mutation.
And if those prove successful, it could be a game changer, couldn't it?
It could, yes.
Yeah.
It could pave the way for a whole new generation of vaccines.
More targeted, more effective, and not just for H5N1.
For other viruses as well, potentially.
This is really groundbreaking stuff, I have to say. This whole deep dive has been so insightful. I'm thinking about viruses in a whole new way now.
That's great to hear.
But beyond the science itself, I'm curious about what drives you personally. What motivates you to keep pushing the boundaries in this field?
For me, it's about making a difference. Infectious diseases have been a threat to humanity for so long. And knowing that our research could lead to new treatments, vaccines, new ways to prevent pandemics.
It must be incredible to be a part of that.
It is. It's about protecting people, not just today, but in the future as well.
It's a legacy, in a way, leaving the world a safer place.
You could say that, yes. And it's not just about the research itself, it's about collaboration, communication.
Sharing knowledge, working together.
Absolutely. We need to break down those silos between different scientific disciplines, between researchers and public health officials.
Between countries even, right.
Mm.
Pandemics don't respect borders.
Exactly. So our response has to be global, coordinated.
It's a team effort on a global scale.
You could put it that way, yes. And it's about being open and transparent about the risks, the uncertainties.
Building trust with the public is key, isn't it?
It's essential. People need to understand the science, feel confident in the decisions being made.
It's all about working together to create a healthier, safer future for everyone.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it really is. It's about, that human desire to learn, to understand, and to use that knowledge to make things better.
Absolutely. It's a journey, constant exploration. And it takes curiosity, definitely,
A
collaboration.
willingness to embrace the unknown. I think that's a big part of it, too.
It is. It is. So we've covered a lot of ground today, those specifics of the H5N1 study, and then zooming out to those broader implications.
Pandemic preparedness, vaccine development. It's a lot to think about.
It is. So as we wrap up, any final thoughts for our listeners? What do you hope they take away from all this?
Yeah, what's the big takeaway?
Well, I hope it sparks some curiosity, about this amazing world of viruses, the research that's being done.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It is, and it's constantly
Yeah.
evolving, this field. There's always something new to learn. So I really encourage everyone to stay informed, ask questions.
Keep learning, right?
Exactly, and engage in those conversations about the science that's shaping our lives.
Because it's not just something happening in a lab somewhere. It affects us all.
It does, and we all have a role to play in supporting that progress, advocating for policies that put public health front and center.
It's a collective effort, for sure.
It is, and by working together, sharing what we know, supporting that research, well, we can build a future that's more prepared, I guess.
A future where we're ready for those challenges, whatever they may be.
Exactly, ready for those infectious diseases and hopefully able to prevent them altogether.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of H5N1.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've explored the science, the risks, those potential vaccines, and really that importance of staying informed, staying engaged.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise, and to everyone listening, thanks for joining us.
Until next time, stay curious,
Stay informed.
keep exploring,
And remember, knowledge is power.
and together, we can make a difference.